Okay, so we're checking out the AIR Q25 FPV car in this video. So this is a rebranding or a different company that's under the Diatone brand, but they created their new brand here. I think they call it SNT, and it's right here on the manual, SNT, and not exactly sure what that stands for. This is the name of the product. It's being sold on the Diatone website. I believe it's a subsidiary company of Diatone, and they made a FPV car previously. I think that was a 170 scale or 169 scale. This is a 1/100 scale. Obviously, again, kind of looking like a cartoon. It's got a giant FPV camera here up on top for your analog video. Pretty cool looking car. Built-in battery, of course. USB-C charging. And you can see there, it's got the Diatone branding here on the bottom. Smaller tires in the front for steering and bigger fat tires in the rear. And the lights and all function. I'll show you that here in a moment. So this is sold in a variety of different editions or versions. You can get just the car by itself. You can get the car with the remote. You can get the complete set here, car, remote, and the goggles. The goggles, we've seen these before. This is a rebrand, obviously under the Diatone brand here. Analog FPV goggles. I forget what these were originally called. They're sold under a number of different names and sold by a number of different companies. 2 antennas here that are included. You can get a USB cable there for charging, as well as an AV video cable. Goes right there, I believe. Charging port right there, micro USB. You got a micro SD card slot there. I've done a couple videos on this one already on my channel, so I'm not going to really go over too much detail, but it's a basic analog goggle. Some smaller glasses will fit into this opening here. It's a fairly decently large screen. Like with any goggle, it's either going to work great for you or you might not like it at all. So this one here was okay for a lot of people, but again, people with astigmatism will have trouble focusing on the screen because there's no focus adjustment. So keep that in mind, you know, if you are considering getting this and maybe getting the bundled version with the goggle may or may not work out for you. So you may want to check out some other reviews on the goggles here. And I honestly don't know the names. I don't remember the names off the top of my head. If you go under my FPV playlists on my channel, look under the playlist for FPV goggles, and you'll see a couple, 2 or 3 different videos on this goggle here. It's been sold under a number of different names. They're all basically the same. So that's, you got the goggles, you get the antennas, those accessories. You get another bag here with a couple of additional USB cables, obviously for charging the car and the remote. One's micro USB and one's USB-C, and you get a USB-C adapter here. Keychain trinket there. You get a couple of these ramps. So they get a smaller one here and a little bit bigger one. So we'll see how useful those are. Of course, you get the manual, comes in several different languages. This is the remote. It comes with an 18650 battery included, which is nice. Charges by USB-C, which is great. There's a little piece of plastic you have to pull out to activate the battery. Pretty standard in terms of remote. You know, you get your pull here, pull trigger for forward, and then push out for brake and for reverse. You got your steering trims here. The steering wheel is kind of at an angle, so I guess you would hold it like this. Yeah, I guess that's nice. It does make it a little bit more comfortable, I suppose. You get a power button here. Well, you get your power switch here, turns the remote on and off, and then you get this power level button here. So the negative one here, this one's for 70% power, and this one is for 100% power. To turn it on, slide it over, that'll turn it on. You get a variety of different buttons. Here's a multi-function button, VTX button here. This is for the underneath lights or the underlighting for the car, and this is for the headlights. So let me go ahead and demonstrate this quickly here for you. It's pretty simple. Turn on the remote first, You get some lights here on top. There's a button here on the bottom. Long press that to power on the car. So this button here is for headlights, basically on low beam and high beam. And I think it's high beam is on right now. That's off. It's low beam and high beam. So, you know, I'm under some bright lights here. It's kind of hard to see, but I think if you're driving this around in the dark, you might be able to see it FPV. I'll put some footage up here if I can remember to do that. I'm not sure how useful this is because it doesn't seem to be that bright, but we'll see here. I'll try that in the dark. And then you got some brake lights here in the back. So when you brake, it turns red. And then you've got your steering turn signals. So if you turn left, got a blinking left turn signal and a blinking right turn signal. So pretty cool. And then you got some some lights underneath here. And then this button over here changes the colors, I believe. So you got red, off. That's red again, blue. Or I guess that was light blue, then dark blue, green, blue again, or brighter blue, and red and off again. So I think I was orange. This is red, so I'll keep it red because that's the color of the car. So that's pretty cool. Of course, the camera here on top, you got a little button here for changing your channels, but I would leave that alone if you get the bundle because it is already paired up to the goggle. So go ahead and turn on the goggle here. Long press this button. Should turn on the screen, and here is what it looks like. So you can see the car, just pointing at the box right here. It's a pretty good image. The camera is decent. It's got a fair amount of fisheye. You know, again, this is a decent goggle, assuming you can focus on the screen. So it's all subjective on everyone's eyes are different. But yeah, you know, Q25 FPV car, you can pretty clearly read that, and there was all the text on the box. So go ahead and drive this around, see what the footage looks like. Obviously, these goggles have a DVR, so I'll be recording the FPV footage from the car on the SD card, and I'll show you that. And I'll also show you a little bit of line of sight of how this looks kind of driving around. Let's just see here real quick what the turning radius is like. I think it's pretty tight because I did some testing here of the steering wheel, and you can see it turns quite a bit. It's proportional. You can see there. I believe it's a brushed motor. Yeah, it's a brushed motor here for the steering and for the power. But let's see how this does. Let's go put it on 70% power here. And so it's a pretty decent turning radius. Oh wow. Okay, that's still pretty fast even on 70% power. So yeah, it's looks like it's going to be fun. It's got a really tight turning radius. Crazy. Oh, this is going crazy. Oh, it flipped over. Wow. So that's at 70% power. Let's see. Let's try 100% power. See what that does. That's about the same. At least they're doing circles. Oh, and it flipped over again. So yeah, if you're driving this really fast, it's gonna flip on you. But it's also very top heavy, so that's probably why it'll flip over. You can see it's got proportional throttle as well. And you see when it suddenly stops, that camera on the top makes it, if you're going backwards and you suddenly stop, and you see that it kind of flips over like that. So be aware of that. So you're gonna be, if you're doing a tight course, you might flip it over. So let's go ahead and I'll show you some line of sight and FPV footage. All right, so after driving this around for a little while, I've discovered that it's not that easy to control when you're driving at fairly faster speeds. If you drive it slow to maybe slightly faster than slow, not quite medium speed, it's controllable, in various scenarios, different types of track sizes. I was just, trying to drive this around on my desk here, and if you drive it slow, it's fine. You can maneuver it around, it seems to be okay. But as soon as you pick up speed, if you go anywhere past half throttle, it becomes pretty much uncontrollable. And the reason why, at least this is what I'm thinking, is because it's very top heavy, and also the weight is kind of centered on the back of the car. When you pick up more speed, the front of the car seems to lift off the ground, and it veers off in sort of some random directions that you're not anticipating. And as the speed picks up, it's harder to make corrections because the steering isn't that precise. So if you make a small correction, all of a sudden it's going, it turns into a really large correction, and you're just kind of going off in one direction or another. It's very hard to control, basically. And I think it's because of the fact that it's very top heavy and the weight is in the back, so the faster it goes, the front wheel seems to lift off the ground a little bit, and it's harder to make steering corrections. So while there is two levels of power, 70% and 100%, I think it needs more precise control because even at 70%, you can't even go anywhere near full throttle or even half throttle to keep this under control. I'm typically in the 25 to 50% throttle range to keep this under control, and even then it's fairly fast. I mean, I can just drive it around on my living room floor, hardwood floor, no problem, and it's pretty fast, even under FPV. But once you go beyond 50% throttle, it just becomes kind of wild, and you just kind of go off into a random direction, all of a sudden, from a small correction, and you're hitting walls and other objects and stuff like that. So it's a bit frustrating. If there was a way to reprogram this to make it slower, I think that would be better. I think, obviously they gave it a lot of power, but it's too much power for the design. So anything over half throttle isn't that useful because you can't control the steering because of the way that this thing is designed. But if you're able to manage the throttle between the 25 and 50% range, it is controllable and it is fun. It's just that, it's hard to manage the throttle in that range precisely. You might be able to get good at it if you practice a lot, but I think it would be better if they found a way to introduce the ability to change the rates, at least the throttle rate and the steering rate. There's steering trim, but there's no steering rate as well. So if you want to go faster and have like really small corrections, there's no way to do that on this remote. So that's another downside for this kit. But if you're just kind of, driving around slow and, trying to do like an obstacle course, that kind of thing, it's fine. It's controllable. Like I said, the issue is managing the throttle trigger and keeping it within that sort of good range where it's under control and you can actually drive it around in a predictable manner. That's the thing I think is the biggest issue. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. Link down in the video description if you want to check it out. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video.